Hello, this is Charles Tuggle here at my studio in Bayview's Hunters Point, San Francisco. And I'm here today. I wanted to talk about my placemats. I started making them because not everyone in Bayview can afford paintings, but I wanted to make something that would be informative, that people could learn something from and possibly start collecting. And I started with one set of placemats, and they were American black cinema from the 1920s through 1945. And there was such an interest in these placemats that I decided over the next 3 years, I ended up doing 4 to 5 sets. So let me kind of point out, just to kind of give you an example of what they are. These are films and plays from the 1920s. They were called race plays, and they have colored casts. And this is from the American Black Cinema set. This is one called Chicago. And I'm going to just show samples of the different sets. And this was from the first set. And these were early black actors in race films because they were separate. They weren't with white filmmakers. And that's one. And then we have another one from the same set, all colored cast, different people that became fairly successful. One was Bessie Smith, of course. And this is also from that set. And this is a jazz figure from the 1920s and 30s who eventually became famous in Paris. And then that's from the first set, and that was pretty successful. And then I decided to do another set on Mexican actors, films from the 30s and 40s, of actors and actresses who was light enough to pass and come into the American cinema. And they changed their names, and they changed their appearance, dyed their hair. For instance, this particular woman became Rita Hayworth in America. And so she changed over and became successful in America. And this is part of the Mexican film series from the 1930s through the 40s. And then there was somebody who people became very familiar with because he kept his own name, was Ricardo Montalban, who became an actor, a pretty known actor here in the 50s and 60s with TV series and so forth. And so that is him in Mexican films. And this is another one, a different scene with also Rosa Camilla, who became, once again, Rita Hayworth once she dyed her hair. And that is part of that series. And then I did a Brazilian series of Brazilian cinema, politics, cultural events, and this is of the sea, and this is a scene from a place in Brazil, El Salvador, which is right on the ocean. And this is a famous film in Brazil. And these are different scenes from different films, Brazilian films. And this is yet another one, which is also Brazilian, both Brazilian films, Brazilian history, famous Brazilian films that never came to the U.S. This kind of describes Bahia, which is one of the big regions that the slaves came over from the west coast of Africa. So this is that's the Brazilian series. And then the other series was the Chinese series. I became interested that meeting young Chinese students who came to this U.S. in graduate school and so forth, that they didn't understand why the Chinese who were already here hadn't succeeded better than they had. And so I had to explain that those Chinese didn't come here to go to graduate school. They came here to work on the railroads, and it was a hard climb for them to make it in entertainment. And so I made a placemat which gives testimonials of some of the early Chinese actors and actresses, and there's quotes from their diaries and history, and that is one, and that's of the actors, and then this is of the Chinese musicians, and there was quotes from early Chinese and musicians and how their success and what people thought of their music. And then there is, of course, John Jang, who's Bay Area current celebrity of Bay Area jazz. So that's the Chinese series, just a couple of examples from that. And then the last series is the West African series on Nigeria, which from the film companies in Nollywood, they call it Nollywood because it's became, in the last 20 years, became the film capital of all of Africa, actually. And they before the last 20 years, then most of the films were coming out of India. But then Nollywood started producing films for and by Black Africans with African titles, African stories, and that is an example from that. And here's another example of films that are coming out of West Africa, and that is Nollywood, Nigeria. And these are some of their titles, and they make films that cover everything from fantasy to current day drama and opera, all kinds of things. So that's basically all I have to say about this particular series, but I just wanted to give you, the audience, some idea of what I'm doing in terms of placemat series. And as I said, these aren't paintings, because the paintings started 500 and up, whereas these are only $100 a set of 6. But if people find these informative, they can start collecting these things, and when they put them up, they will also have something that they can discuss with friends and do further research on in every subject area. And that's it for today, and thanks for listening.